Hi, I'm Sally and this is the tutorial for my giraffe design. I think he's come out really well. You will need whatever colour you want to do his body. I've done mine orange and I'll be doing mine orange again today. It's sort of a darker orange rather than a fluorescent one. And I'm also using brown to add sort of patches on. You will need a black band for his eye and the same. You'll need 5 for the sort of tassely bit on his tail, the end of his tail, and you'll also need some white band for his nose and for the ends of his legs there. So let's make a start. So taking your loom, the staggered configuration with the arrows pointing towards you, first we're going to make his little horns. So we'll do this on the loom because I think generally people find easier to use the loom than to use your hook. So I'm taking a single orange band and I'm doubling it and I'm placing it over 2 pins on your loom, it doesn't matter where. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing again. I'm placing it over. I'm then going to take a brown band. I'm going to take another brown band, I'm going to double it and I'm going to wrap it around this pin like a cat band as many times as I can. I've managed twice. So you should have something that looks like this. You will need to do it again. So I'm going to do the exact same thing again on the other side of the loom. Brown, and then the cat band. Whoops, slipped off. So this is what you should have now. So we're going to push these cat bands, very tight cat bands, but cat bands all the same, out of the way, and bring the brown band round. Loop up the 2 orange, same on the other one, pushing it back, looping it round, and again, and again. So you have your 2 horns, so we're just going to put them at the end of our loom out of the way for now. So you should have something that looks like this. I'm just going to put these over the 2, just right at the bottom of your loom. Far down as you can go. Try and keep them on the same side though, because when you make the legs, obviously the legs are going to be long and so is the neck, so you'll need the space. We're now going to make the ear, so similar way of doing it. So doubling the bands, I'm using orange, and doubling again. So we're going down 2, and then the same idea with the cat band as we did with the horn. Doubling it and wrapping it twice if you can around the pin and then looping up, so inside that very tight cat band, and looping up and then remove, and you have an ear. Again, placing that at the bottom of your loom. So we have 2 horns and an ear. The last thing we are going to make before we make the head is we're going to make this little nose part here, and this is really easy to do, so we'll do this on our hook. So you're taking a single band, wrapping it around your wrapping it around your hook 3 times. Taking double white bands and sliding those on, looping them up, centering that band, so it's like this. Placing this again at the bottom of your loom. And now we can make a start on making your giraffe's head. Although there is one last thing we need to do. Taking a single black band, just wrap it around your hook. 3, 4 times, and this will be your giraffe's eye. Just leave it on your hook for now, we'll add it in later. So now we're going to make the giraffe's head. So taking a single band, place it loosely over the centre pin. Taking double bands, we are going to go from the centre first to the side second on both sides. So it's like that, like a really steep V. And then we're going along the side 3 times with double bands. This is all double bands unless I say otherwise. So if you're not sure, and I haven't said, it's double bands. Same along the bottom, 3 times. 2 and 3. So it should look like that. And now we're going along the centre 5 times, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Along the middle, double bands again. So 1, 2, 3. Then you should find that you finish diagonally one pin after the sides. So you finish of this pin here. We're now going to take double bands from this pin to this pin, and the same this side. So they're going diagonally. Like so. So you should have something that looks like this. And then we're going to place a cap band on this centre pin here. Oops. So wrapping a band around, single band around the pin 3 times, and 3. The horns are going to go at the top here, and we're going to place both horns on the same pin. So it's on the 5th pin at the top. So, and I just realised I've made a mistake, but it's fine, it's easily corrected. So, place in the horns, so they're sort of at a V shape at the top of your loom, and then remove this cap band, because the ear is going to go there. So easy. Slight mishap, but easily corrected. Okay, so you're just placing the ear over that centre pin, straighten it. So far you have this. The snout is going to go here, and you may have noticed that on the design I showed you at the beginning, I did have an additional white band in his face here, but I think he will look better with just all orange and then the white there. If you just want to do this band, you just want to have that white band on the face, it's this band here, it's the first band you put on in the centre, if you did want to do that. Then we're going to place on some triangle bands. So you want one triangle band to go across where you got the horns, then the one directly opposite, and this one that hasn't got the ear on it. Going down again like so, and again like so, and one more. So it's like this. So you've got 4 triangles in total, and then we're going to be into loop. We'll add in, and I'll let you know when you need to add in the eye. So, pushing the ear out the way, take the top 2, bring them around the pin and onto whichever pin they've come from. So mine are going up towards the horns. I think they're called horns. If they're not called horns, I don't know what they are called, but the little tufty bits on top of their head. This one's coming down towards the jaw. Yes. Pushing the ear out of the way once more and bringing those bands forward, straightening the ear. Okay, and now we're going to go right along the bottom, up to the nose. So pushing back all of the bands except for the bottom two, and looping forwards, looping all the way forwards, like so. Going down the centre. Now, this is where we're going to add in the eye. So you've looped the one coming off of the ear, coming forward. The next one is the one you want to add the eye onto. So loop it up as if you were going to just loop it forward like normal. But before you loop it forward, thread, slide, put that band, that black wrapped band, onto those two bands. So it should look like this. And then loop it forward. And I'm going to carry on and loop. And the top, so pushing the horns out of the way, which is not an easy thing to do. I'm going to pop my loom around just so I can see what I'm doing, because at the moment it's a little bit tricky having so many bands on that pin. There we go. If you do need to loosen them, if you just take your hook and just run it around inside the bands, it will just help to loosen them up and stop your bands from breaking, hopefully. But if you do end up with one broken band, don't worry too much. It's not the end of the world, and the design will be fine. So once you've looped up, your giraffe's head should look like this. Kind of does look like a giraffe. And you're taking your single band and you're going to tie it. But as you loop it up and you tie it, you want to try and get it so it's either down the bottom or up the top, but on the orange bit, so it doesn't go across the white. Otherwise it might look a little bit weird. So going in, pushing back all the bands, finding a single white band, single orange band. I'm going to pull mine down if it will let me. And I'm going to knot it and just pull it round towards the face. So it still ties it, but it ties it on the orange band rather than on the white bands. And once it's all tied off, you can remove from your loom your giraffe's head. And that noise is my guinea pig drinking. He often does this when I do my tutorials. Not every time, but fair enough for it to start to get a little bit irritating, but it's fine. You can work with it. So stretch your giraffe's head out. And you want to hide this band here. So if you pull it round so it's towards the back of your giraffe, and just take your hook through a couple of the bands. Get that band and just put it through. Like so, then he's off again. Now I swear he's not actually thirsty. He's actually just trying his luck because he does do this an awful lot. I'm not convinced he's actually drinking any water at all. He's just being noisy. So just try and ignore him. Hopefully he'll get bored soon. So we have a giraffe's head, if you can see, it should look like that. So we're just going to place this to one side. The next thing we're going to make is the giraffe's neck. Sorry, I have an itchy back. Right, so taking your loom, we're going to start with 3 bands together going across the 2 pins. So we're going to go down 7 times. So you can use your brown bands if you wanted to, or you can use orange or whatever colour you want to use. because you want to have the narrow part of the neck at the end when you add on the head. So going down 7 times with 3 bands. So I'm going to add in some orange, some brown now, just to mix it up a little bit. So I've gone down 3. So you've got your 3 bands, you can see there, all going on together. So 4, do brown again, do any combination you want. 4, 5, 6 and 7. And now we're going to continue to the end of the loom using just 2 bands. So same as we've been doing with the head, just 2 bands, just to make it a little bit narrower. And when I do my brown, I generally do them singly, so I'll just do 1 lot and then I'll continue on. But if you want to have a bigger sort of splodge, bigger spot, then do more than 1 together. So you've gone down 7 times with 3 bands together, 5 times with double bands. I think it's got a little bit bright. I'm not sure how well you can see, but that's what it looks like. Hopefully you can see enough. And then we're going to take our giraffe's head and we're going to place it on this end pin here. So you just want to take towards the back of his head, sort of level with his ear. Take, so like for instance, I'm going to do mine here. So you've got the ear here, the horns are here, you've got 1 loopy stitch here, and then through the next one, so I've got 4 bands on my hook. I'm going to use this to attach him to the loom so his head's facing sideways, like that. And now I'm going to continue to loop up. We will need to add to this neck in just a moment, but you run out of loom, so we'll add in some more in just a sec. Those giraffes are known for their very, very long necks. Just get a little bit tough when you get to the 3, like the triple bands, but it's not too bad. So when you've looped up your giraffe's neck, we can just leave it on here because we can work down the other side of our loom. And we're going down with 3 bands again, another 6 times. So just carry on, start at the top again, or work it out and work from the bottom if you want to. If you count them out and then work, so you add it on at the bottom. It really doesn't matter. Just do whichever way you find easiest. So I'm starting at the top. I've done 4. I'm going to add in some brown. And then 1 last orange, I think. And there we go. So you've done another 6 sort of sets of 3 triple bands. So we're going to remove this from our loom, like that. And we're going to add it on this end, the pin at the end of the row of 6. And you want to get the neck as straight as possible for when you loop it. Otherwise I'll have a little bit of a kink in his neck and it'll look a little bit odd, I think. It's easy, if it does happen, then if you just sort of tug it a little bit, it should straighten itself out. So there we go. So I'm just going to remove this from my loom, make sure his neck's nice and straight, which it is. and that band's come untucked, so it looks like he's got a little bit of a goatee. There we go. So we have a giraffe with a neck, placing this at the end of the loom, or onto a holding hook if you'd prefer, like that. Next we are going to make the legs. So I'm going to show you how to make one leg, and you will need to pause the video and make a further 3. So to make the leg, we're going to take 3 bands, same as we've just done in the neck, and we're going to go down 4 times with 3 bands. So 3 and 4, like so. And now we're going to go down 3 times using 2 bands. So 1, 2 and 3. And now I'm going to switch to white, as the picture I was using to make sure my colours and everything were right and the proportions were about right had the bottom half of the legs were very pale. So if you want the legs to look like this, then do them. These 5 bands will be white. So I'm going to do these white. You don't have to. You can continue with whichever body colours you were using. So you're going down 5 times with the white bands, which should take you right to the end of your loom. And then you need to place a cap band over this band here. So I'm going to use brown, so it's like his hoof. Just wrap that around. I'm going to wrap it around 4 times, so it's a little bit smaller, but dependent on your bands. Pushing this band back. If you've got smaller bands, then you can't manage 4, do 3 or even 2. If you've got very, very super stretchy bands, then do them more. Just do whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you feels right. I'm just looping all the way up to the top. One leg. We're just going to add a little bit more, so like the thigh, I suppose, to the top. So we're going to do another 4 lots of 3 bands together, and then we're going to attach this part of the leg to it. So going down another 4. I'm now going to remove this part of the leg, straighten it out, and I'm going to add on to here, straighten the leg as much as possible, and I'm going to go in through this bit here, and I'm just going to loop right up to the top. And I'm going to place this at the end of my loom, straighten it out, place it at the end. So as I said before, you will need to make another 3 legs, so if you pause the video, make yourself another 3, and then when you come back we'll make his tail. So for the tail, we're going to go down our loom 10 times. We are using bands that we've doubled over in our body colours, so I'm going to use orange and brown. So just double your bands over, and we're going down 10 times because a giraffe's tail is quite narrow, I'm going to do a big splodge of brown on this one. So I'm going to do 2 together and then back to my orange. So you should finish 2 bands away from the end of your loom, so it should finish here. If you can go down 12 on a full loom, go away then another brown. Just keep going. I'm going to finish it off with a brown band. So you should have something like this. And now for the end of the tail, I'm going to switch and use black. So you will need 4 bands, 4 single bands together, and we're going to place these over the end of our loom, just here, like this. So you've left a gap, so they're not actually attached to your tail as yet. We're going to take a single band, like this. We're going to feed it through, so you can use your hook, fingers, whichever way is easier. If you want to do it on your fingers, that's fine. So you've looped it through, like this, and that's just pinned straight out, so I'm just going to have to do that again. And you're going to make a slip knot. Now on previous tutorials I have advised against doing this because in my experience these bands do break, although in all fairness it could just be my bands that I'm using. So for instance on my sheep or on my Mr. Messy tutorial I've said just loop them through and put the loop on, because we need to cut these bands to make the tail like this. They will need to be secure. If you just put the loop through and then cut them, they just pull through, so it just stops them falling off, I guess. So then we can remove this, and we're going to wrap the band that we've used to tie it around this as if it were a cap band, because that's effectively what it is. I'm just going to place it over that pin there to hold it. Okay, and trying to keep little tassely bit, those loops centered. Just gonna wrap around as many times as you can so it's not too loose. I think I've gone around maybe 5 or 6 there. And then once you've done that and you've added these bits on, you can loop right up again. So this is really tight now, so pushing that back and putting this around like this, and I'm just looping it all the way up. A little bit more tension because you've got one band that's doubled on itself, but it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I think the sun's come round and it's now shining right where I am, so I hope it's not too bright and you can still see what's going on. So you should have this. We're going to remove the tail from the loom. And that really tight cap band. So here you have the tail with the loops. Now what you will need to do is take a pair of scissors and just go through the loops and just cut them like that. I don't generally like cutting bands, but I couldn't find another way around it, and that will just give you like the little tassely bit on the end of his tail. So again, this can be added to the end of your loom. Just going to place it there. So now you should have your head on a neck, you should have 4 legs, and I have another 3 just here, and your tail. There's one more thing that we need to make before we start on the body, and that's an extension piece. So this piece will just help to give the rounded bit on his back so it's not straight. I don't think there's any giraffe that has a really straight body. So using double bands, we're just going to go along our loom 4 times with double bands. So using whichever colours you want to use. This is just going to be part of his body, so it's up to you and your preference. And then taking a single band, we're just going to double it like that, and we're just going to place it over this end pin here, like this. Doing the same on these 3 here. So band, double it over, and place it over the pin. And these bands that we're using now will attach this piece to the rest of your giraffe. I'm now going to loop this up, so just very carefully go inside this band. It's very loose, you'll have to hold it on more than likely, and just loop forwards. And these bands that we've just put on, just go inside them and just pull up the bottom 2 bands on each pin till you get to the end. And you don't need a band wrapped on this pin here, because you'll use these loops here as instead of using the loops. And I'm just checking that there are 2 bands on there. Yeah, there are 2. It only looked like 1 to me from the angle I was. So now we can remove this piece as well, which should just look like this. Again, down to the end of your loom. And now we can start on the last stage, which is making the body. So taking double bands, I'm using orange again. Just place them loosely over that centre pin there. And then you're going diagonally from the centre one to side one first, however you want to say it, pins. Just try and shade it so you can see. And then we're going along here 6 times. So using whichever combination of colours you want. You can add in splodges, you can do it all one solid colour if you wish. You can do it blue if you really want to. But there's no set thing, but I thought I'd just use general sort of giraffe colours. Like this. So this is double bands again. Not sure whether I said or not, but double bands. And then we're going along the centre, so we finish on this pin. So 7 times, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times along the centre, again using whichever colours you want to use. So just working my way along. Can I give a splodge in the middle, I think. There we are. And then again 6 along the bottom. And then we're going to close off this design by placing diagonal bands between these 2 pins and these 2 pins. Double bands. So this is the shape you should have, like that, for your giraffe's body. The next thing we're going to do is add on the extension. So taking it from the bottom of your loom, you're placing these bands here around the 2nd pin. This is going along the back, the top of your giraffe's back. Let me try and work out the best way of showing you this, if I can. So you may find it easier to take this loop it on, and then come back and do these, or you may find it easier to stretch it out and then put that on last. So I'm going to try and show you without doing it, but if you need to, then feel free. And you'll be able to see, as you pull it out, that there are little circles in the sorry, I forgot what we're saying, in this extension piece. So if you just take your hook, pull out the loops, there should be 2 bands, and just work your way along the extension piece and along your loom. So there's 1 loop for each of the pins, and I'll try and explain this to you again in a minute when I can show you. So you're just pulling out each of the loops, placing them around the pins. So you're starting on the top 2nd pin, and then as you pull it out you'll find a little loop. You put that on the next pin, the next loop on this pin, the next loop on this pin, and then the final big loop at the end goes on this pin. So this is the one before you started going diagonal. So it should look like that. We're now going to add on the tail, and this is going on in place of a cap band. So it's going around this pin here. So this is the bottom of your giraffe. This is where you've just placed the extension. It's going here where you finished putting your bands on. So place that over like that. Try and get it straight, as in the bands aren't crossed, but you want it sort of coming down at an angle rather than sticking straight out. And then we're going to add in the head, and this is going on the top pin. Would make most sense, I guess. So it's going on the top pin just here. I know that looks like the bottom pin to you. To me it's the top pin, it's the pin before your extension starts. And make sure you put your giraffe's head around the right way. So that he's facing forwards. Right, last thing to add in is his legs. So we're going to place 2 legs together on the 2nd pin and 2 legs together on the 6th pin. So 1 there, and then I have my other 3 just here. It's a lot of bands to squish onto one thing because each one's got 6 bands. It is perfectly doable, so don't worry. So I'm just removing it and placing it on my hook, and then the other 2 on the 6th pin. So it's the one just before the giraffe's body ends. Like that, and place them so they're not like straight on top of each other, they're sort of at an angle. So like he's walking. And that's everything added, so I will show you what your giraffe should look like. His head is here, he's feeding. Right, sorry. It's like mad moment then. We're going to place our triangle bands across. So again, this is an upside down, as you can tell, because his legs are sticking in the air. So don't put a triangle band around where the tail is. So start on the 2 pins either side there and make a triangle, and this will just hold your design together. Same going across the leg and the extension piece, and then across his tummy and his tummy again. And I'm just using all orange for this. I'm not worrying about swapping colours because it's difficult to match because you're using brown in sort of in a more random way, and you're finishing just here. So these front 3 pins don't have a triangle band on them at all. And then we can loop. So going in through the tail, pushing that back, and taking the top 2 bands, and mine are brown, which makes it a little bit easy to find, you'd think. Sorry if my hands are in the way, I can't find my bands. Got them. Okay, so loop them forward, and then going back in and finding the next 2. And they're being tricky today. Cheeky little bands. And then going in again and finding the last 2. So around his rear should look like this. And that little thing, that noise, it sounded like an elephant running up the hill, was actually my daughter. She's surprisingly noisy for someone so small. And we're just pushing back all these bands. Now these ones with the legs on are pushed down so far and it's difficult to find, but you want to push back all of the bands except for the bottom 2, and you want to hook those up. And again, if it gets tight around, then just run your hook around the inside of the pin and loosen up the bands. So carrying on and hooking forwards and in through the legs, pushing them all out the way, finding those bottom bottom 2 bands, which I did, and then the hook slipped. Like that. And then we're just hooking forward to his chest, this centre pin here. Carrying on along the centre, like this. And then along the back of the giraffe. When you get to the extension pieces, just push those bands right out of the way, and you're only hooking the bottom 2 bands. So you shouldn't be hooking anything other than the bottom 2 bands. Like this. We're nearly there now. And then in through the neck, pushing all of those bands back, finding the bottom 2 and hooking them round. And there we go. So once your giraffe's body is all hooked up, it should look like this, but the other way around. Like that. Taking these bottom 2 bands and placing your hook right down, pushing back all the bands and finding those bottom 2 and hooking it round like so, making a slip knot by putting one set under the other of the bands. And once he's all looped up and he's tied off, you can remove him or her. There's no saying that this is a male giraffe. And I was going to show off them by using a proper term, and I couldn't think what it was, so I'm going to be quiet instead of making a fool of myself. Cow? Is it a cow? A female giraffe? Is it a cow and a bull? It's elephants, isn't it? I'm not sure if it's... I don't know. I'm sure if I heard it, I'd be like, yeah, that's right. I'm mumbling. I'll be quiet. Right, so here's your giraffe. Make sure that these bands are as tight as you can get them without breaking your bands. You can tuck them, as we did with the head, around the back. And if you wanted to hang this, you can add in some bands wherever you like, just basically what we're doing here, but the opposite. Just pull them through and you'll be able to hang this design. And I'm just going to adjust this quickly. And there we have a rather cute giraffe. So, if you've enjoyed making this, which I hope you have, and you do like him, they're a bit floppy, you could always add in something into his neck, maybe a pipe cleaner or something into his neck, so it's not so floppy. If you've enjoyed making this, please like, comment, let me know what you think of my designs and of my tutorials. Please subscribe and you'll be notified when I bring out more tutorials. What else do I need to tell you? I am on Twitter, at Sally's Looming. If you'd like to find me, follow me, share your finished results with me. You can also do that on Instagram, again, at Sally's Looming. And I am also on Facebook. If you search Sally's Looming, all one word, you'll find my group on there, and you can share pictures of your finished results, make requests, which you can also do on Twitter and underneath this video. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed making Giraffe and you're pleased with what we've made, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.